Hey folks, today we're diving into a topic that's a bit, well, otherworldly. We're talking about purgatory. Now, before you picture some fiery underworld, let's clear the air. In Catholic tradition, purgatory isn't about punishment, it's about purification, a kind of spiritual car wash before entering the pearly gates. Imagine this, you spend your life doing good, believing in God, but you're human, right? You make mistakes, fall short, maybe even have a few regrets. Purgatory, according to Catholic teaching, is where those rough edges get smoothed out. It's a place, or maybe a state of being, where souls are cleansed by God's love, prepped and polished for the ultimate reunion upstairs. Now, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air, it's got roots in ancient Jewish thought, got a boost from the early church fathers, and was really solidified in the Middle Ages. So, buckle up as we journey through the history and theology of purgatory, exploring how this concept evolved and what it means for Catholics today. Let's rewind the clock way back, long before Christianity, to the time of the Old Testament. The ancient Hebrews, like many cultures, had their own ideas about the afterlife. Now, they didn't have a specific concept of purgatory, but their beliefs about Sheol, the abode of the dead, laid some groundwork. Sheol wasn't exactly heaven or hell. It was more like a shadowy waiting room for all souls, regardless of their earthly deeds. Think of it as a neutral zone, a bit gloomy perhaps, where everyone went after they died. But here's the thing, even in Sheol there were hints of something more. Later Jewish texts like the Wisdom of Solomon started suggesting a kind of purification after death, a refining process for the soul. This idea, while not fully developed, planted the seeds for the later concept of purgatory. Now you might be wondering, where's the biblical backup for all this? Well, while the word purgatory doesn't appear in the Bible, there are a few passages that have been interpreted as supporting the idea. One example is from 2 Maccabees, a book included in the Catholic Bible. It tells the story of Judas Maccabeus, a Jewish priest, who found that some of his fallen soldiers had sinned. Judas offered prayers and sacrifices for their sins, hoping to help them in the afterlife. This act of intercession suggests a belief that even after death, there's a chance for purification and forgiveness. Another passage often cited is from the Book of Wisdom, but the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment will ever touch them. This verse suggests that while the righteous are protected, there might be a different experience for those who aren't quite ready for heaven. Section 4. Awaiting the Messiah, the intermediate state. As Judaism evolved, so did its understanding of the afterlife. The concept of an intermediate state, a kind of temporary holding area for souls after death, gained traction. This wasn't about eternal punishment, but rather a period of refinement and preparation. Think of it like this. You bake a cake, but it's a little doughy in the center. You wouldn't toss it out, right? You'd pop it back in the oven for a bit longer. Similarly, this intermediate state was seen as a chance for souls to bake a little longer, to become fully ready for the presence of God. This idea resonated with the hope for the coming Messiah. It was believed that when the Messiah arrived, he would usher in a new era, and those in this intermediate state would be cleansed and welcomed into God's kingdom. Section 5. Early Church Fathers, shaping the idea. Fast forward a few centuries and we arrive at the time of the early Church Fathers. These influential thinkers and theologians, like Origen, Augustine, and Gregory the Great, grappled with the question of what happens after death. They drew upon Jewish scriptures, combined them with Christian beliefs, and started to shape the concept of purgatory as we know it. Origen, for example, believed in a kind of purifying fire that cleansed souls after death, preparing them for heaven. Augustine emphasized the importance of God's mercy and justice, suggesting that even those who died in God's grace might need further purification. And Gregory the Great popularized the idea of praying for the dead, a practice rooted in the belief that the living could intercede for souls in purgatory. These early thinkers didn't have all the answers, and their views sometimes differed, but their writings laid the foundation for a more formalized understanding of purgatory. Section 6. Purgatory defined, from medieval times to today. By the Middle Ages, the concept of purgatory was firmly established in Catholic teaching. It was seen as a necessary stage for most souls, a place where they could be cleansed of their sins and made worthy of heaven. This period wasn't about punishment for punishment's sake, but rather a loving process of purification by God. Dante Alighieri's epic poem, The Divine Comedy, played a major role in shaping popular perceptions of purgatory. Dante imagined it as a mountain with different levels, each representing a particular sin. Souls ascended this mountain, purging themselves of their flaws as they climbed higher towards God. The Council of Trent, a major Catholic council held in the 16th century, further solidified the doctrine of purgatory, emphasizing its importance and clarifying its purpose. It affirmed the existence of purgatory, the value of praying for the dead, and the role of indulgences, remission of temporal punishment, in helping souls on their journey. Section 7. Modern Catholic Thought, a refiner's fire. So, where does purgatory stand in modern Catholic thought? Well, it's still considered an essential part of the faith, though its understanding has continued to evolve. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, a comprehensive guide to Catholic teachings, describes purgatory as a purification, so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. It emphasizes that this purification is not about fiery torment, but rather a process of being transformed by God's love. Pope Benedict XVI, in his writings and speeches, often spoke of purgatory as a fire of love, a refining process that burns away our imperfections and draws us closer to God. Pope Francis has also emphasized the merciful nature of purgatory, describing it as a place where God meets us, purifies us, and helps us to reach our full potential. In essence, the modern Catholic understanding of purgatory focuses less on the punishment aspect and more on the transformative power of God's love. It's about letting go of our earthly attachments, our sins and imperfections, and allowing ourselves to be fully embraced by God's mercy and grace. It's a process of becoming who we are truly meant to be, ready to enter into the fullness of joy that awaits in heaven.